Hello, beautiful, and welcome to High Vibration Conversations with Melissa Romero, the spiritual misfit. On today's episode, we will be discussing the difference between toxic and divine masculinity. What are you tapped into? Hello, hola, familia. I am so excited for today's topic, and I'm so excited that I'm doing something different today. I have a few people that are going to join in the conversation with me. But before that, I want to talk about and give you guys an intro about what I'm going to talk about. So I want to start off by telling you what this is not going to be, right? This is not going to be a man bashing session. We're not going to sit here and just bash men. That's definitely what it's not going to be. But I've become super interested in this idea of the divine masculine versus the toxic masculine. This all came to me about a month ago in ceremony in Costa Rica, and it's been something that I've been researching and talking about and just learning more and more as I go. And I thought at this point I could talk about it to some degree, and of course hear your input on what you feel as though is the divine masculine versus the toxic masculine. And so with that said, I want you to understand, most of you that know me know that I do speak highly about the divine feminine. I do a lot of work around divine feminine, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. So I get excited to talk about this. But just as though there's just the same way that there's a toxic masculine, there's also a toxic feminine. So let's not pretend that doesn't exist. So that does exist. But for today's conversation, I want to talk about the divine masculine versus the toxic masculine, because it seems to be the object of conversation these days. Because as women are healing and awakening, we're starting to realize that, men are also being suppressed and conditioned. And all this imbalance in the energies has become this toxicity. And so I really believe that, just as we feel as though women are suppressed, men have always been suppressed. And just because it doesn't look the same, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? So a lot of the suppression, I feel, stems from the colonization. I mean, I've been trying not to use that word because it's such a buzzword. But the more I look at it, the deeper I go into it, the more I think it has so much to do with that. It has a lot to do with the religious conditioning that men had, right? The ineffective leaders, the ineffective leadership, men not fathering their children, and especially in my population, in the people of color population, it's very rare for a man to grow up with his father around. And so without guidance, men only have society, television, TV shows, cartoons, whatever it is, to guide them into what it is that a man's supposed to be. So let's first talk about what is this? What is this divine? For some of you that don't know, what is this divine masculine? What is this toxic masculine? What does that all mean, right? What it is, it's an energy, right? It's an energy, and we all possess both feminine and masculine energy within us, women, men, equally. But when there's an imbalance in the masculine, right? When there's an imbalance in the divine masculine, and I'm speaking about mostly for men, when there's an imbalance there, what happens is that it manifests as violence. It manifests as inequality. It manifests as a lack of compassion, right? It manifests as dominance instead of equality. It manifests as racism. All these things are part of the toxic masculine. And so, like I said before, it came about due to society, due to shitty upbringing, shitty school systems, and men how many times have you heard a woman or a mother tell her child, like, be a man, act like, or a father even tell his child, be a man, act like a man. What's a man supposed to be like? And so that what it does, that's like one of the worst types of suppression of men, because men have this view that they're supposed to be strong, which they are supposed to be strong, not supposed to be, but they should be strong. The divine masculine is strong, but in that strength, they've been taught to believe that strength equals violence. It equals anger, and that's one of the biggest, highest toxic masculine traits that we see is that anger. And men feeling as though, like, in order for me to stand my ground, in order for me to be a man, I have to impose force, and my force has to be angry, and it has to be violent, and it has to be ugly. And this is what I want to talk about, because it's not that way. That's not the way it's supposed to be. So when the masculine needs to integrate and balance with the feminine. When it's not equal, it's like when the masculine and the feminine are not equal and the energies are not equal, it's like a warrior without discipline or wisdom, right? A warrior goes out to war and has no wisdom. There you go. That's when he doesn't have the balance of the feminine, and he just goes out there, and just goes to war and fights without logic, without wisdom, without compassion, right? So all of this is part of that imbalance. And so like Chris just said, it's brought about by ineffective leadership. It's like bad by lack of true fatherhood. I agree, Chris, 100%. So we could focus on the toxic masculine, or I can share with you guys what the divine masculine aspects are, right? What does the divine masculine embody? And I'd like to focus more on that. I could sit there and give you a list, and it's long, the list of the toxic masculine, but I'd like for you to know more about what does the divine masculine embody. So some of the things is that the divine pairs with the feminine, and it represents the completion of balance. The divine masculine, when it pairs with the feminine, that's the completion of balance. It's the yang to the yin. Okay? It's the yang to the yin. And so when it's balanced, it works. It's a beautiful sacred dance that they do together. All right? It's the Shiva to the Shakti, right? It's the mother moon to the father sun, right? It's just such a beautiful pairing and such a sacred dance that they do together when they're both in their balance, when they're both in where they're supposed to be, when the man's in the divine masculine and the woman's in the divine feminine. Right. The divine masculine, he admires and celebrates the feminine with rooted and grounded strength. So I'm not saying that the divine masculine isn't strong. It's that the strength is different. It's rooted and it's grounded, and it comes from a place of logic, not a place of ego, right? Not a place of manipulation, not a place of domination. It comes from a place of strength, and it's rooted and it's logical, right? And so the divine masculine, he's solid, right? And powerful as well. He's confident, and he's driven, he's strong, he's bold, and he's brave, right? And a lot of times people are confusing what driven means, right? Oh, driven means that, at whatever price I have to pay to get there, I get there. No, because the divine masculine works from logic, right? And it's not I have to bulldoze through everything and anything that gets in my way to get there. No, he has a plan. He's logical. He's solid. He's brave, right? And so also he leads without imposing. That was one of my favorite ones, because us in the divine feminine, a woman that's in her divine feminine wants a man that's a leader, right? Wants a man to lead her. But of course, the leading doesn't mean imposing. And a lot of men, I find myself from experience, that a lot of men think that leading means imposing. Leading means manipulating, right? But that's not the case. They lead without imposing, right? He holds protective space for the feminine to flourish. Flourish. I love that. He holds and protects the space for the feminine to flourish. And he supports the feminine. And he presents options to the feminine. And so whenever he's confronted with a challenge, whenever the sacred masculine is confronted with a challenge, he responds openly and honestly. Not angrily, not frustrated, just openly and honestly to what he believes. He says what he means, and he means what he says. Honesty is big for the divine masculine, because it feels like a lot of men feel as though they have to live up to a certain standard or be a certain type of person to be considered a real man, that a lot of they just submit to lying. They just choose to be dishonest. So in order for them to be viewed as a man, right? They feel as though they have to, because if they don't, well then someone will figure it out. Someone will figure out that I'm not a man. But that's not what it is. The divine masculine is honest and open. Which is crazy, because men have been taught for so long to suppress any type of emotion. And if you're going to be open, you need to be able to be vulnerable and express your emotions, right? Because that's the only way you could be open. So that's one of my favorite. He means what he says and says what he means. He wants the divine masculine wants a partner that's going to assist him in pursuing his dharma. He wants someone that's going to help him walk his walk, and support him in the process. And he works, again, and I said this again, he works with logic and reason. See, so it's not anger, it's not manipulation, it's not dominance, it's because eventually what happens to the toxic masculine is that he ultimately just self-destructs. He self-destructs because he's not walking in his truth, in the truth of who he is. And he condemns anything that has to do with reflecting or anything that has to do with emotions. He's incomplete and imbalanced and self-loathing. These are some of the things that I found as I was doing research. And one of the things that I saw that made so much sense to me is that a toxic masculine is a perpetuated adolescent. Like, he's constantly living in adolescence. And so it takes a certain type of maturity to achieve divine masculinity. Right? So because these men that are in their toxic masculine, in that toxic masculine energy, are basically still children, are still living from fear, and they justify their life in a state of fear. And there are a lot of men that I've come across that are in this huge state of fear, whether it be for whatever conspiracy is going on, or the world is ending, or everything that's going on in the world. And what happens is that fear perpetuates this toxic masculine. And it's super it's funny, because as a woman, I talk about how society is suppressing women, and in divine feminine circles, I talk a lot about the beliefs and colonization, and how all this has been against women, and how we've been taught to hate ourselves and all that stuff. And as I was doing this research for the divine masculine, the system is doing exactly the same thing for men. Because if you think about it, what is the conversation that we have all the time? What are we bombarded with in the news and everything? We're bombarded with fear, and how better to divine masculate a man than to have him living in fear, right? A man that cannot reach his divine masculine energy if he's constantly in fear. And this is what we're bombarded with all the time. So it's so amazing to read all this information and learn about why is it, or how is it, and see how society today and how the media and everything perpetuates this horrible suppression of both the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It's like this war against our divinity. It's insane. And yet so amazing and so beautiful to look at and be able to see. And I wanted to come live because I want to see if you could see it too. As a man, as a woman, can you see it? I don't want us to man bash. I don't want to tell you that because you're this way, you're bad. I want you to see and look at all this with empathy and understand where you came from and understand where you have to go. And it's not like you have to be there by tomorrow. It's like what is my destination if I want to reach divine masculinity? And I think the reason why I've been called to do this is because I work so much with the divine feminine, and I feel like we have to heal together, hand in hand. Like both the feminine and the masculine have to work together, and we have to heal together. This is the only way it's going to happen. So I'm so happy to have this conversation. And here's the thing. If we can build this connection with men, with the divine masculine, and with men specifically, we will see a significant reduction in hostility and violence and all the destructive behavior that we see today. If men could tune more into their divine masculine, they'll realize that the answers go beyond violence. It actually goes deeper than violence. See, violence is easy, it's shallow, right? But if we want to go deep, we have to tap into our divinity, both women and men. So thank you so much. Together we rise. Yes, yes, yes. All right, let me see. First, I'm going to have Ron. Let me see if Ron can come on. Let me ask. I have this amazing man. Let me see if I can get him on. Hey, Ron.
Hey, how are you?
I am amazing. How are you?
I'm doing so well, and this is such a fantastic conversation. As a recovering toxic masculine man myself, I'll be the first to say that everything that you just said, living out of fear and having that toxicity just sort of brew in our lives, it was killing me. And like you said, you end up self-destructing when you continue to live in that energy. And so I'm so excited about this combo. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. So the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you so much is because I know that you're a military man, and I feel like some of these things that are ingrained in men really happens like hardcore in the military, right? All this toxic masculinity, this like violence, this. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I believe that, for that specific thing, especially when you talk about war and you talk about that, there is a necessity to have that more aggressive masculine energy. But I think we take it a little bit too far. I know, for mental health wise, that is really stigmatized in the military. And, they have people really suppress that and not have people talk about that. And that will, again, just start to really breed, like a cancer inside. It's not good. And so when you don't have an outlet to be able to talk about some of those things, and then throw on some of the, a lot of folks join the military out of destructive childhoods and running from, past lives. And so they're already coming to this system with, charged nervous systems, and, sprinkle on a little bit of kerosene with, the military industrial complex and the leadership. Like you said, I think it all comes down to the leadership, because not everybody has the same experience in the military. But I know for me, I, had a much different experience. I joined at 17. So learning what it was to become a man from the ages of 17 to 24, all I knew was, the military and, my leadership, and really a lot of toxicity within those systems for sure.
Mm. Wow. So what do you think was the root of your toxic masculinity when you felt like you were at your most toxic? Where do you think it came from?
Yeah, I was an angry person. I mean, what you said about the anger is so true. I feel like I was not grounded. I had no control over my emotions. I'd let any little thing sort of set me off. And so, at my worst, it was really in a, haze of taking pharmaceuticals for, mental health and trying to figure that system out. Not having really anybody to talk to. We're not talking about the divine masculine and feminine in the military. A lot of this language is, fairly new to me in the last 3-ish years. And so I had to take a deep self exploration and figure out what was going on. And, at the root of that, again, for some folks, this can be really heavy to talk about energy and talk about, the spirituality aspect. But for me, that was a really huge driving force. Like, I grew up without, a father figure in my life. He was a very toxic person. Ended up dying a couple years ago, and I think that is what really sort of woke me up to look into, how can I be different? How can I change this narrative for my lineage? Not just for myself, but to really make a difference for, my life moving forward. And so, anger was one of those really big things, and that started to turn inward. As much as it was outward, it was so much worse inward, internally. And I think that a lot of folks, when I see somebody that is very charged, toxic, if we want to say that, I have compassion because I remember that so well. And you don't necessarily have the tools or understanding of how to get through that and get out of that, but there is a path. There's so many different things. I think that was a lot of getting in touch with the divine feminine, really understanding the feminine qualities within me, not being afraid of that, not, putting a label on that and saying that this was something or it wasn't. It was really just recognizing and stepping into that and really allowing some of that healing energy.
Yeah. And I feel a lot of the conditioning, right? A lot of it's like, what man wants to say I'm tapping into my feminine? Right? I think that men are allowed to even say, it's like, oh, well, if you're feminine, then you're this or you're that. And it's such a beautiful thing when a man, in order for the man, it works like such a thing, right? The energies, they work so well together. In order for a man to reach that divine masculine energy, he has to tap into his feminine, and vice versa. Like we both have to dance with both energies and equally. And then when it's like a man and a woman together, that dance becomes like a 4-part dance. Like it's not just 2. And so men have to understand that it's okay. It's okay to tap into your feminine. And parts of tapping into your feminine are, compassion, empathy. Those are all parts of the feminine. And compassion not only for others, but for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we talk about compassion and everybody talks about having for other people, but it starts with us first. Like how you were so angry towards yourself and the self-talk was ugly. And so before you could heal your self-talk with other people, and I believe that strongly, before we could heal anything outside of us, we have to work with it inside of us first.
Always. And I kept looking for that external validation, and I kept, you sort of drive into a hole and you're trying to, try to be a little bit more aggressive and try to fit in, and, all of the things that may not necessarily be you, but until you can understand that feminine energy is real and not be afraid of it and embrace it, it's been a really interesting journey for me. And, I know there are some veterans here listening, and I'm so grateful for that. And, this is a challenging conversation to have in the military community, because I think that it's tough to understand, and just deconstructing our military service in general is just a big task. And so to go even deeper, to talk about our childhoods and how we're parenting ourselves and the narratives that we're telling ourselves, it's a lot. It can get really deep. But yeah, the feminine, I'm so grateful for, I've had some plant medicine experiences where I feel as though I've been able to meet some of these energies and be able to, I don't know, just integrate it into my life a little better and not be so afraid of it, but be able to really integrate and incorporate some of those principles in my life.
Yeah. I mean, and we all have to. And so what I want to invite the vets or veterans that are on the call is to not look at it as, if you want to Google it, just Google like divine feminine aspects or attributes. and you'll see what they are, and just tap into that. You don't have to call it your divine feminine if you don't feel comfortable, but just tap into some of those. They're like compassion and service, and there's a whole list of like goes 10 to 13. And if you could just try to tap into that a little bit, like baby steps. I mean, you know, don't try to don't try to do it all by tomorrow, but steps, and you'll know that all of a sudden the way you look at life is different. All of a sudden, like, peaceful. Because the thing is, Ron, that I've noticed, and I notice it within me, if I'm too far in the masculine, I and women tend to get depressed, or we get anxious. So same with men. Like if you're too far in the feminine, you'll start feeling certain things. But also once you start exploring the feminine, you'll start actually getting closer to the masculine. Because the thing is, to get us out of that toxic, and that toxicity is so strong, and it's so deeply ingrained in society. Like it's deep. It's deep. Even now, like I have a 12-year-old, and I watch him. He watches anime, and it's so violent and so like, you know. And I'm just like, oh my god, my toxic little masculine baby. But it's so ingrained, and you have to understand, and people that are raising children, because right now it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and you have to explain, I think, to children, to those children growing up, that that's not real life. Like that's a hurts. That's not real life. That's not how we act in real life. Because honestly, like I know in the military you get into situations where, you know, you have to protect yourself, and there's no other option, right? But that's in the military, that's in war. In real life, we don't have to be violent. Like there is no violence. Like we can act with logic. I mean, I'm not, I grew up in the hood. Like I didn't grow up where, you know, I grew up with people getting jumped and girls fighting you because you have cuter shoes than them, you know? And there are times when you have to protect yourself, and you do. But unnecessary violence, that's the problem with the toxic masculinity. It's just a constant, and it's this need to prove I am a man because I could be angry and strong, and this is my strength, is my voice, my power, my violence, and it's not. It's
Nah, you know, I'm so glad that you said that, because I believe that the military conditioning is very, very strong. And so a lot of folks, even when they're out, it's, you know, they'll still act like they're in, or follow a lot of those principles. And like, that's not real life. A lot of those tools and things that we were equipped with and learned, they don't serve us anymore. And in fact, like for me, they were really detrimental. I had a lot of ways about me that were, you know, aggressive and hard. And while that can be necessary at times, the softening is where it's all at. And I was fighting that until I realized, like, yo, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel, like, notice these emotions and like try to understand them. And so I'm sorry, I'm with my dogs, but instead of like passing judgment on yourself, like I would just say the nastiest, meanest things to myself. I was able to, you know, meet myself with some compassion and just start to learn and understand some of those feelings rather than fight them with those very easy, you know, it's very easy to be aggressive. It's very easy to get mad. And so, yeah, super grateful for this convo. Sorry about my dog.
no, hey, dogs. No, I get it. And that's what I said earlier. It's like to take the violent road. That's easy. That's so easy. Like, oh, people piss me off, I'm gonna punch them. That's so easy. I grew up like that. I grew up that way because it was like, well, if I, let's say, you know, I grew up in the hood, so if I needed to prove myself so that, you know, these girls don't jump me or whatever, I had to fight, or I had to do this, or I had to do that. And it was like this conditioning that, you know, I have to show my strength by, again, violence. And I just want everyone to realize, like, just really, really understand that that's the easy way out. Like, like the harder way up, that's literally the easy way out. Like, to sit with it, to actually stand and think logically and come from a space of compassion, empathy, love, and understand that one beautiful lesson I taught my son once is that he went through this situation with another kid in his class, and it really brought him, like, he's never experienced anything like that. And one thing I taught him is like, but, you know, hurt people.
Yes.
And so you need to look at it like that, instead of looking at it like being angry and saying, you know, I hate this person, I want to meet them in the schoolyard and fight them or whatever. No, look at them like, wow, for them this hurt. I wonder what they're, or what they're going through at home, that they're this hurt, that they want to hurt me so bad.
Yeah.
You know, and at times, you know, that doesn't work. At times someone punches you in the face and you have to do what you do. Hopefully that never happens. But that teaching that compassion and having that empathy, that's one of those divine masculine traits, is that looking at it logically and from that space of compassion, which is divine feminine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you mentioned something about like the divine masculine leading and knowing and being confident. And that's something that I'm working on because, you know, I felt like I knew everything and I felt like I had it all figured out. But what I learned is like really a huge tool for me in the past couple of years is to like just stay curious. Like there were so many times in my life that I felt like I was so solidified in what I knew and what I understood. Be curious enough to question things and be curious enough to maybe try something different because you know, I think a lot of my patterns that I thought were serving me weren't really serving me. And so until I was able to actually see that and recognize that, it was really challenging. And again, it was the divine feminine that was able to sort of help me understand that, see that, and how to really nurture that.
Exactly. And also one of the traits I didn't mention was being okay with being wrong.
Yes.
So hard for some men, like to not have the answer. And one of the things I was reading about the divine masculine is that when he doesn't have the answer, he said, I'll research that and find out for you later. Where like men are so conditioned to think like if someone asks me something, I have to know and I have to
Right.
answer. And so to be like, okay, I don't know, and that's okay. And that's hard for women too. I mean, I had to like actually practice, like to be like, okay, I don't know this, and
Yeah.
I'm research it. So that's definitely hard, is that being able like to be open and to be open to being wrong sometimes. Like, oh shit, yeah, wow, you're right, and
Absolutely.
that takes a long time.
It really does. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Well, thank you so much, Ron. Is there anything else?
No, this was amazing. I'm so grateful for some of the veterans that jumped in here and some friends and just to have this time. I'm learning so much from you just in what you post and so I hope everybody that's watching this make sure you go follow and I'm honored to have been asked to be a part of this conversation. Really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you too, and thank you so much for your beautiful words. Oh, one of the guys says, "Clean haircut, Ronnie."
Thank you, brother. Let's see y'all.
Thank you, Ron. Wow, what an amazing conversation. Hey, we have another divine masculine in the house.
Hey, peace and love, everyone.
Hello. So talk to me. How are you,
I'm
David?
doing great. I'm just outside right now, just relaxing and enjoying the light and the stars.
Nice. Talk to me. So what did you get from the conversation? What did you add to it?
Well, I would like to add that I know a lot of us men, we're like in search of a role model for our manhood. And one thing that I've learned throughout my years of developing myself to be the man that I want to be is that most of the time we don't have to search for a role model. If we were to just stop and sit with ourselves and give our brain the time to provide us with the answers, we would see that a lot of the answers that we're searching for is within ourselves. And I can give you an example. Um, a lot of times I lacked the ability to love. I always wanted to love. I'm a deep lover, but I just didn't know how to express it. I lacked a lot of expression 'cause within my household, they didn't really teach love. They wasn't really expressing love. And plus, I
Mhm.
was raised with a whole bunch of men, a lot of toxic men that were from the hood, and a lot of my people around me, they were in the streets doing, they were pretty much street pharmacists, I like to say. So like, so their love is like super toxic. The only time like they were expressing love is when they're like intoxicated, which wasn't good enough, especially like when you're a kid. Like you need that constant validation of love. So that's something that I didn't receive. But I always wanted to be a lover. Um, one day, yeah, 2020, I sat with myself, um, and I realized that I lacked love. I lacked the ability to love, and I also lacked receiving love. And by me sitting with myself and realizing that, I went on a quest to understand what love was for myself and how to express it. And once I did that, I understood that love is something that you create. It's not something that you just feel. Because a lot of times we go off of the feeling. If we're not feeling it, then it's not real. It doesn't exist. But while you're creating it, then those emotions comes. Um, so that helped me out a lot with loving myself. And also, I understood that, by loving myself, I came to the conclusion that a lot of the things that I disliked about myself, I needed to change it. I knew that I didn't have a man to guide me in that process, but I knew that I had myself. And with me knowing that I lacked certain things, by me being honest with myself, knowing that, hey, you know what? I told myself I lacked in this, I lacked in that. Um, and I decided not to compare myself to other men. And I also went on a quest to learn from women, because I knew that I had an ego complex. My ego was high as hell. Like, I was super assertive, I was aggressive as hell, and I knew that I was a fighter. But a lot of that fight and flight mode that I was in, it was due to my lack of ability to express myself and be able to speak up for myself, verbally. And since I lacked that, I was always on edge with wanting to fight people if I felt like I was being disrespected, or whatever the case may be. So I went on a quest to just learn from women, because I knew that she was my ex-wife my wife at the time. She was great with being assertive. She wasn't aggressive, but she was assertive. She knew when um, to take charge. She knew when to be assertive. She knew when to use her masculine energy when it came to certain situations. So I analyzed her, I watched her, and I took some of her traits. And by me taking her traits, I was able to create the man that I wanted to be. A lot of us, we want to be like other people or other men that we see, but we don't take time to see how we want to be as a man, what balance that we need. Because I know within, by me learning from the feminine energy, it gave me the opportunity to bring balance within the masculine, like you mentioned earlier, which is true. Like me, I always say that I'm the embodiment of the dark feminine energy, just because I'm a Scorpio and we come from planet Pluto, and Pluto, she represents the dark feminine energy. Um, that's the reason why I love so hard. I'm so emotional, whatever the case may be. So by learning from my wife, she taught me how to be a man. She taught me how to bring balance with my masculine. So now I'm able to stand grounded within my feminine while expressing my masculine when need be. Because I feel like as a man, um, most of the time we don't realize it, but when you become balanced, or when you are on the path of balancement, um, most of the time you're going to be using the feminine energy, because the toxic energy at that the toxic masculinity is always going to be like a reactive energy. Is always going to be there wanting to charge forward. So in order for you to counterbalance that, you have to be in the feminine most of the time. And the family, a lot of us men, we we misunderstand the feminine energy. We think energy as the woman's energy, not knowing that us as men, we have our own feminine energy, and how it's expressed is totally different than the woman's feminine energy. Because I know, like, for a man, like, most of the time when you see me, you might think that I'm using my masculine energy, but I'm using the feminine energy, because I'm being loving, I'm being nurturing, I'm showing love to you, I'm being open, hey brother, come in, give me a hug. You know, I love hugs. So I always give my brothers a hug. When I see my brothers, I give them a hug. Hey, give me a hug. Now, give me, I don't want a handshake. Give me a hug. This right now is just me being open to you and open on your platform and expressing myself to you is using the feminine energy. And the fact that I'm doing that and I'm confident in doing so, I'm also using the masculine energy as well. So it's like a balance thing that we don't realize it, but it's always there when you're using the feminine energy. And it's somehow it brings balance to the masculine energy. But most of the time, I don't even try to put labels on those two things. I just be, because like as a man, we try to put labels on things just so we can feel strong in our masculine energy, or in our being of being a man. So I try not to put any labels on none of those things. I just try to just be and be the man that I know that I can be, not according to anyone else's understanding or any other people's opinions or so forth.
Exactly. No, I love that. I love that, just being, and that's actually a divine feminine quality as well. To just be, and not putting labels. And us as humans, that's part of the human conditioning. We need to put labels. We need to put things in little boxes so that we can understand them, so that we can bring logic to it. And I love what you said about all in self. And here's the thing. When you were speaking about, like, for a long time you searched for a masculine to guide you, to teach you. Here's the thing. They're so few and far between. Even like some of these groups that I've watched, like, and I'm not going to name any, but some of these men groups that do these men retreats, watching them, I'm like, oh, like, they're super violent, some of them. One of my friends, he said he went to one and they had people like bare knuckle boxing with each other. I'm like, that is like the epitome of toxic masculinity. Like, why are we bare knuckle boxing each other? And so, like, so it's hard. And so this is the reason why I'm saying this, is because it was so beautiful how you came into the realization that if I want guidance, I have to find it within me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How I am the one that embodies everything. And that's what it all comes down to. I studied Emerson last year or this year. Emerson is this amazing prolific writer, and he writes these amazing essays, and they're spiritual. But one thing he always says over and over and over and over again, no matter what I say, you listen to you, because you have the answers all within you. And a lot of us feel like we need to search for the answers outside of us. Like, somebody's gonna give me this magic key that's gonna get me to divine femininity, divine masculinity, or divine femininity, right? But all the work and all the studies and all the practice, all the answers are always within us, because deep down inside we are already divine. We are already perfection, right? And
Yeah.
so the search is that, right? And it's beautiful, because you ask the universe for how can I get there, right? How can I need guidance. And the universe showed you guidance through your ex-wife. It showed you guidance through life and watching her. And yeah, I believe that it is a beautiful sacred dance, and it requires a balance. And in order for you to reach your divine masculine, you have to connect to your feminine. Like, it just goes hand in hand. So I love that. And then one thing that you said is that, you had a hard time loving. And I just wanted to remind you, because I know you know this, because I know you, and I know you know this, but you are love, right? Everything that is you is love. And I always use this with my clients. I work with women, and I tell this story every time. There's a story with Michelangelo, the sculptor, and this lady interviews him, and she's like, and he's a crazy famous beautiful sculptor, and he creates these magical pieces. And this lady interviewed him and asked him, how do you create these masterpieces from a slab of marble? And he says, the masterpiece is already in the marble. I just have to chip away at all the excess marble. So your masterpiece is that you are love, right? And this journey and these quests that you go on are just your way of chipping away at that excess marble, all that conditioning, all that toxic masculinity that you saw growing up, and for you to reach that space of love that is already within you. And it's
Mm-hmm.
you. And I see it within you when I see you. is you have to just chip away at the excess marble so that you can uncover the masterpiece. And I love that you are already in the process of doing that, David. It's so beautiful. And it sounds like you're on the journey and on the path. And you know, there, I always like to remind people that, you know, in this path of spirituality and all these things that we want to accomplish, there is no destination. It's a journey, and it's a journey that goes on forever until we die. So we're constantly uncovering ourselves and uncovering that masterpiece over and over, and then every now and then we throw shit on it again, and then we uncover that, and this is, it's a beautiful sacred dance with life. And so I'm glad to be a part of your life and to watch you in all your ways and to hear that your story. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome. Also, I just want to add one more
Go
thing.
ahead.
For us men, like, I just feel like us men, we just have to be like, use our logical minds. You know, like, you have to be like real with yourself as well. You know, like, you know that a lot of the things that you're doing aren't tolerable for yourself and for others, especially like for your loved ones. Like, when you know that, like, you know when you're manipulating your lady or imposing things on her, like, you feel it. Because I know when I was in that toxic masculinity, I knew what I was doing. I knew what I felt, because it was to the point where I felt bad that I was doing that. Late at night, sometimes I used to feel bad that I was taking advantage of my wife, or I was manipulating her, whatever the case may be. So, like, you have to be honest with yourself and sit with yourself. Like, I know some, especially when you know that you want to change, but you lack the ability to do so. Seek help. You know, like, you might not want to tell your wife that you might that you need help, but just do it. I mean, you could do it behind closed doors without her knowing. You know, hey, tell her I'm going to the gym, and then, you know, you just go to therapy, or you go to a friend who's great with their wife, learn from them, and then you come back, and the next thing you know, your wife is, you know, she's surprised. Oh, my husband is changing. He's better. He's more loving, and whatever the case may be. You know, just be honest with yourself, because I know that by me not being honest with myself, I destroyed a lot of beautiful moments, and I destroyed a beautiful woman just because I didn't have the courage to say to say that I needed help when I needed help. It was too late. I went out and sought the help, and I did my best. I repaired what I could, but the damage was there. So my advice to my brothers is to keep your head up and to be honest with yourself. And I promise you, honesty with yourself is going to take you a long way on your path of finding balance within your masculine and your feminine. And don't be ashamed to tap into the feminine, man. Because I'll be honest with you, I love it, man. I love being loving, because, like, when I have to present my masculine, I love to do that as well. So peace and love to my brothers and sisters. May y'all continue to be blessed.
Thank you so much, David. And yes, I love that. When you need help, ask for it. And also, you know, the divine masculine is honest and open. And if at the moment you don't feel comfortable, if for some reason it doesn't feel safe to speak to your partner about something, I agree with David. But at some point, I do believe that you should try your best to have that open conversation with your partner. I know I appreciate that whenever I'm in a partnership, like, just express yourself, tell me what's going on, how can I be of assistance? Because a woman, that's one of our things. We want to help, and we always want to help. So yeah, but I appreciate you so much, David. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for your perspective, you and Ron. It's just so beautiful, and thank you for volunteering to be a part of this.
You're welcome, sister. All
right, love. Bye. Take care. Thank you. Wow, that was so amazing. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being a part of it. I hope that our time together was of service to you, to me, to the universe, and to everyone that was listening. I hope you learned just a little more. And I also, one of the biggest lessons I want you to leave with is to have love and compassion for yourself and your process. So if you're going through this process and you're seeing that you have more toxic traits than divine traits, have that compassion and love for yourself and understand where they came from. Try to dig into where this came from. And then from there, from figuring that out, you can move forward. and then start tapping into more of your divine feminine qualities, more of your divine masculine qualities, so that you can go ahead and heal yourself and present yourself and be of service to the universe. I mean, we all need that. We need a balance, and we all need to heal the feminine just as much as the masculine. So we just need to get into that space of healing, and we can only do this if we do it together. Thank you so much. I love to love you guys. Have a beautiful, beautiful night. Peace.